We begin the Gemara today at the bottom, or towards the bottom of Daf Yud Beis, Amud Beis, where it says, Tanya Amar Rabbi Lazar. The first word on the line is Kamash Malon. The Gemara here is going to bring a Braisa, which will explain the Machlokes we had in the Mishnah on Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis. There, the Mishnah brought a Machlokes between Rab Meir and the Chachamim. When one sends a get with a shliach lohilocha to his wife, or a shtar shichra with a shliach to his evet to free him. So Rab Meir says in both cases, it's a loss for the woman and to be divorced and for the evet to be freed. So until the get or the shtar does not reach their hand, the Odin could retract from this. The shliach cannot be zoiche in this for the isha or for the evet, because the rule is, ein chavan la'adam shalei b'fanav. You can't be zoiche in something for someone not with his consent or him asking you to do so. So over here, both to be divorced and to be freed is a loss. Chachamim, however, disagree. Chachamim say for a get isha, it's definitely a loss for her to be divorced, so the shliach is not zoiche in it for her without being asked, and therefore the husband could retract before she gets it. However, when it comes to an eved, it's not so. For an eved, it's as a chus for him. He's not losing anything by being freed. So before, the Gemara over here was discussing the point that it said in our Mishnah that what this depends on is regarding the fact that a husband must feed his wife. So therefore now, when she gets divorced, this is a loss for her. And an eved doesn't necessarily have to be fed by his master. So therefore, it's not going to be considered to be a loss for him. He's just, adarabi, he's being freed. But here, there's another detail that was mentioned in the Mishnah. And, okay, we'll see here in the Braisa, the Gemara brings in the Braisa the discussion that there was between the Chachamim and Rab Meir about the Eved. Why there's a difference between Eved and the Isha, or why they should be the same. This machlokes here, between Rab Meir and the Chachamim. So Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, towards the bottom, Yud Beis, Amud Beis, towards the bottom. Tanya, we learned in the Braisa, Amar Rabbi Lazar said, Amarnu loyle Meir, we said to Rab Meir. It refers to him as Meir, as Rashi here says, because he was his friend, so he refers to him this way. It's definitely a benefit for an Evet to be freed from his master. If so, the shliach delivering this shtar for him should have the ability to be zeiche in it for him before it reaches his hands, and the master should not have the ability to retract from this. Amalanu, so Rab Meir answers, no, chayvulai. It's actually a loss for the Evet to be freed. Why is that? Shimoy Evet Kayin, because if he was an Evet that was owned by his master, a Kayin, so being freed is a loss, because Paislam in Truma. He won't be able to eat the Truma from his master. Amar Nulai, so to this the Chachamim responded to Rab Meir and said as follows, but Valay Ma im Yirtze Shaloi Lezainai V'Shaloi Lefarnasai Rashoi, but if his master decides that he does not want to feed him, he doesn't want to give him any food, isn't he allowed to do so? So again, that's a svara that it's no loss for him to get freed because he wasn't being fed by his master. Now, Amalonu, to this, Rab Meir responded and said, Uma ilu evet kayin shabarach. But what is the halacha regarding an evet of a kayin that runs away from his master? Or ve'eshes kayin shamar dal baila, or the wife of a kayin that rebels and runs away from her husband. Halayichlin betruma, but because she's still married, he's still an eved, they still can eat truma and v'zein oichel. So if so, you're getting divorced or being freed from this master or husband or kayin, it is considered to be a loss, because now you won't be able to eat any of that truma. Okay, so now this conversation here, it's not clear exactly what Rab Meir is answering when he's talking about an Eved running away or a wife rebelling. How is that a response to what the Chachamim said? The Gemara will explain. Well, the Gemara concludes here, the Braisa that is concludes, that the Chachamim say, Aval, however, they will agree, Isha choyvula. For a wife to be divorced, for her it's definitely, there's a loss in this. She came paslam in a truma, because if she's married to a kayin, she'll be losing the truma she could have eaten. Or a wife, any husband, she loses the mezainis that the husband is obligated to give her. Okay, but now the Gemara explains the pshat in this conversation between the Chachamim and Rab Meir. Mai ka'omru lei, what did the Chachamim say to Rab Meir? Umai kamahadaluhu. And what is Rab Meir answering to them? It's not clear here, the conversation. Each one is saying a point, but they're not really addressing what the other said. Answers the Gemara, Hachika Amar. This is how you have to understand this conversation. There's sort of something missing here in the Braise, and the Gemara fills in what the Braise is really saying. Hachika Malahu, Rab Meir is saying to the Chachamim as follows: Hashavtuni, you've answered me, Alamazainis, regarding this, that a master has an obligation to feed his slave. So for that, you're answering me that no, a master does not have an obligation to feed his slave, so therefore when he gets freed, there's no loss involved in that. That you've answered me. That was the first point that the Chachamim say, that a master could decide, I'm not feeding you. But the question still remains, Ma teshivuni ala trumah. But what's your response to this, that I say that if his master is a Kayin, then he has the ability to eat trumah as long as he's a slave, and now he's losing that. So Rashi explains, even if the master decides that he doesn't want to feed him any food, but it doesn't matter. The fact that he is the slave of a Kayin, he can go around and take truma from anywhere, because being a slave of a Kayin, he has rights to truma. So the rights that he has to truma, he still has. So, and he's losing it when he's getting freed. So what are you going to answer to that? So on this, what the Braise over here means to say is, Rab Meir continues saying, if you're going to argue and say that no, he doesn't really have any rights to truma at all, even though he's an Eved right now, because the master at any given moment, if he decides that he wants to throw him a get and free him, so that he won't be able to eat any truma. So therefore, you can't say that this Eved is in a position where he for sure could eat truma. And now this shliach being zeiche in this get for him is causing him that loss that he's not going to be able to eat this truma. Even if this shliach is not going to be zeiche in this get for him, what's if the master at any given moment decides just to go ahead and give this shtar shikhr directly to the Eved himself? He won't be able to eat truma. So he's not really in a position where this truma that he can eat is something that's secure for him. So losing it by the fact that the shliach accepts the get for him is not considered to be a loss. If that's your argument, it's on this that Rab Meir says in the Braise, but still, no, there is a loss here. And the reason is because Shaviklei, Va'arik, what happens if this slave will leave his master and runs away? Va'azal, he goes far away from his master. Or Ma'ilu, Eved, Kayin. So again, Va'arik, he runs away, Va'azal, he goes somewhere else, and he eats truma. So he eats truma when he's far away from his master, right? So in such a case, his master cannot give him any get or can't give him any shtar shikhr. If your argument is that his rights that he has to eating truma is something that is not sort of something that he has, it's not sort of secure because his master at any given time can divorce him or can free him. But no, what happens if he leaves his master and runs away? His master cannot give him any get, and he's going to go. And wherever it is, he'll find truma, he'll eat, because he's an Eved of a Kayin. An Eved of a Kayin has the rights to truma. So now, ma'ilu Eved Kayin shebarach. So what's the halacha with an Eved? This is the word now of the Braise. What's the halacha with an Eved of a Kayin that runs away? Veishes Kayin shemardal baila. Or the same also with a wife from a Kayin that rebels, runs away from her husband. They can continue eating truma. If so, Rab Meir says, so this shliach that will accept this shtar shichror and will get him to be freed, so v'zein eichel. It's a loss because now he won't be able to eat that truma that he could have otherwise ran away and been able to eat that truma. That is the taina of Rab Meir, that an Eved that gets free is losing something, and therefore the shliach cannot be zeiche in the shtar shichror for him. Says the Gemara, Shapi Kamalu. So Rav Meir has a good response over here. So what's the Chachamim's answer to this? Omar Rave, so Rave says, the answer for this we actually see in the Mishnah on Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis. Hainu de Kamadri Lebe Masnisen. This is the answer that it says in the Mishnah, and the Mishnah reads as follows. Mipnei Shehu Kin Yonei. That this is not considered to be a loss for the Eved, and the reason is because he's owned by his master. What does it mean to say by that? What it means to say is that even if this Eved runs away, and now his master can't free him, so he sort of has this ability to eat truma. But truth is, even if he runs away, he does not have the ability to eat truma necessarily. And the reason is, as the Gemara now spells out what this means here, the boy shakal arba zuzim Yisrael. This master can go and take a small amount of money, for example, 4 zuz from another Yid, and sell him to another Yid. So he's a Kayin that owns this slave, but if he takes some money from another Yid, so then he'll be owned by another Yid that's not a Kayin, and he passes him from eating the Truma Kol Hechad Isei, wherever he is. So the point of here is, the Eved can't run away and then he'll be safe and secure to be able to eat his truma as long as he wants. No, at any given time, the master can decide to sell him to another Yid, which is not a Kohen, and then he loses his truma. So the fact that he would be losing his truma now by this shliach receiving this shtar shichra for him is not a loss, because either way his master at any given moment could take that away from him. Okay, but Rab Meir disagrees with this. Now the Gemara says, Rab Meir, according to Rab Meir, Tainach Eved Kohen. He explained why an Eved of a Kohen is considered to be a loss for this Eved when he gets free, because he loses the truma. Eved Yisrael Ma'ikal Meimar. But the question is, what loss is there if it's an Eved of a Yisrael? There's no truma involved there. So why does Rab Meir say, that any Eved that gets freed from his master is considered to be a loss? Amar Rab Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak, the answer is there's another loss involved there. Because when he gets free, he loses the ability to be married to another shifcha kananis, to a maid. Fragt the Gemara, why is that a loss? On the contrary, there's a gain here. By being free, now he becomes a full-fledged Yid, and he can get married to any free Yid. So he loses one option to get married to Shofar Kananis, but he gains the option to marry a Bas Chayren. And says the Gemara, that's considered to be a loss of an Eved, because Avda behefkede nichalei. The Eved is happy to be in a situation where he can live a hefker lifestyle, and therefore zilalei. This Shifcha Kananis is someone that is she's someone that allows to be mistreated. Shchichale, she's always available for him. Peritzale, she's always there. She lives with him and not in a very modest manner. And therefore, it's a huge difference. If he's getting married to a regular Jewish wife, he's going to have to give her the proper honor and proper space and so on. No, but now he has the ability to marry a Shufcha Kananis, and he could live more of a Peritzistic lifestyle, and that's what the Avda Bafkeda Nichale is, and therefore he loses out by getting free. Yeah, this is the famous source of this expression of the Gemara. Avda b'hefkeda nichale. That an Eved desires always to be hefker. Okay. Taisus over here says actually that the Rabbanon agreed to this concept. Avda b'hefkeda nichale. It's brought in the Gemara many times. But still, Taisus says that he is losing that lifestyle of hefkedus, but at the same time though, when he's getting freed, he's obviously gaining his independence and his freedom. He doesn't have to work for his master. So the Rabbanon hold that freedom is much more powerful than the fact that he's losing this hefkedus lifestyle, and therefore it's considered to be a zchus, a benefit for the Eved to be freed, and the master can't retract once he gives the get to the shliach. The shliach is zeich in it for the Eved. This is also a halacha that was brought before, and here we have a Mishnah and the Gemara that discusses this in length. Person says, here, give this get to my wife. Or he says, shtar shikr zelabdi. Or he says to a shliach, bring and give the right and give this get for the shtar shikr, or a shtar for freedom for my Eved. Umeis. And before they did so, he passed away. Layitnu la'achamisa. It's not given after he passes away. Once he passes away, she's not his wife anymore. She's an almana. So there's no get to give to her. Or regarding the shtar shikr, Rashi says that once the master passes away, now this Eved is owned by the children. So therefore there's no, he can't free them. They're owned by the children. In another place, Rashi actually says that they can't be freed because after he passes away, he's not alive for the shlichus to be fulfilled. A shliach is only there to fulfill the shlichus as long as the mishaleach, the master, is alive. If he's not alive, so then they can't fulfill the shlichus anymore. But the Mishnah says, if the case is if a person says, here, give this money to this individual, and then he passes away, yitnu lachamisa. That you do give after he passed away. That's different. Okay, so that's what the Gemara will focus on to explain here the second half of the Mishnah. Rav Yitzchak bar Shmuel bar Marta Mishmei de Rav. So Rav Yitzchak bar Shmuel said in the name of Rav that this halacha, that a person before he passes away, he says, give this money to this person, and then he passes away, you have to give it after he passed away. That's only if this money that he says give to this person is there, it's gathered and it's lying in a corner, specific money. And he says, here, give this money that's sitting right here to this person. But not if he stam says, give money to this person. So the Gemara asks on this, why did Rav say so? What is the case over here? Are we talking about a regular, healthy individual that says, give money to this person, and then he just passes away? So kisiburin may have it. The fact that this is specific money that's right here, and he says, give this money to this person, how does that help? Why would we be obligated to give it to that person after he passes away? That person did not do any action to create a kinyan, like Meshicha, where you pull it into your property. So if there was no kinyan, it's just that he said to give it to him, and now he passes away, why is there any obligation to follow through with this? What do we have to answer? The pshat over here is b'shchiv merah. This is a person that's lying on his deathbed. He's about to pass away. So in such a case, when a shchiv merah says so, you have to fulfill what he says. As we learned before, by the case of a shchiv merah, Chachamim instituted that the words of a shchiv merah should be considered like done and like there was a kinyan, and you have to fulfill it in order that the shchiv merah should not feel bad about this and be completely frustrated that he doesn't know if his words are going to be listened to. So, but if that's the case, fragt the Gemara, my ear yitzi burin, why is Rav saying only if the money's right here gathered, then he's pointing to this money? Ki ein siburin nami, even if the money's not here and it's not gathered, the same halacha should apply. The hakaim alone, because we know the halacha. The divrei shchiv merah keksuvenu k'mesurin dami. The words of a shchiv merah, it's like it's been written and it's like it's already been given over to him. So you have to give this money to that individual. Answers the Gemara, Amar Rav Zvid la'olam bebari. The truth is that the last part of the Mishnah is talking about a whole different halacha. This Mishnah is really implying a different takonas chachamim that they will misaken. And it's as follows. We're talking about a regular healthy person. And this is a halacha that Rav Huna said in the name of Rav in a different place. Amar Rav Huna Amar Rav, Mana libi yotcha. What happens if Reuven comes to Shimon and says, you have $100 of mine in your possession? And there's another person there with them, and he says, Tanei uloi, take that $100, instead of giving it back to me, give it to Levi. Here, this third person that's standing here, give it to him. So that's three, or Tanei uloi leploni, you read it together. Tanei uloi leploni, give it to this person. So they're all three standing here. Reuven, which is the owner of this money, Shimon, which is holding the money for him, and then the third person, which is Levi, and he says, give it to this person. If they're all three standing there together, Kana. So the third person that he says that the money should be given to him acquires rights to this money, and you're obligated to give him the money. This is, we'll see here soon, the sugya is coming later in Amud Beis. This is what's known as the kinyan of Maimet Shloshtan. This is a takanas chachamim, because there's no action of a kinyan. It's just by saying that it should be given to him, automatically he's kaina the rights to this money, and you have to give it to him. The Gemara will discuss later how exactly this kinyan works, but it's chachamim instituted this kinyan. So that's what our Mishnah was talking about over here. And therefore Rashi says, at this point, the Gemara is understanding that this halacha of this kinyan of Maimet Shloshtan is only regarding money that's actually present. When Reuven turns to Shimon and says, look, you have $100 of mine right here in your possession. Give that money to Levi. That Rashi says, for example, a pekadeh. He gave him $100 to hold on for him as a shomer, and now he says, instead of giving it back to me, give it to him. But let's say Shimon borrowed $100 from Reuven, and the money's not here at all. He spent it, and he just owes him the money. In such a case, since the money is not present, this halacha of Maimet Shloshtan does not exist, and that's what Rav meant when he said regarding our Mishnah, V'hu shetziburin, only the money that's here, does this kinyan of Maimet Shloshtan take effect. Okay, so the Gemara says on this, Rav Papa says a different pshat in our Mishnah. Going back to the previous option the Gemara brought. Our Mishnah is talking about a person that's on his deathbed. Our question was, but if that's the case, why does it make a difference if the money is here or the money is not here? Answers the Gemara, there's another statement that Rav said about Shchiv Merah. Rav said, Shchiv Merah she'omat nu mana leploni menachasai. He says, give $100 from my possessions to this person. So then, if he specified maneh, it's this $100 right here that you should give, noisnen, then you have to give. Maneh stam, if he just says give $100, then ein noisnen, you don't have to give the money. Why? Chayshinon shema maneh cover kama, because it's possible what this person was saying is, I have $100 that's buried somewhere underground, and it's that $100 that you should give. But there's no other $100 from his possessions that he intends to give. So only if the person is pointing to a specific $100 that he has there, that's when this klal of the words of the Shchiv Merah, that's like kiksuvnu kimesurin, and you have to fulfill it, applies. And that's the pshat over here when Rav said before, with tzibura, that it has to be money that's right here. But the Gemara concludes on this, halacha of Rav, but the halacha is the kvura lechashina. When a person says, before he passes away, give $100, we're not choshish, maybe it refers to $100 that we don't know where it is, so you don't have to give anything. We're not choshish for that. Okay, so we have two pshatim in our Mishnah, Rav Zvid's pshat and Rav Papa's pshat. Are we talking about a healthy person, and is this halacha of Maimed Shloshtan, or are we talking about a Shchiv Mirah? Says the Gemara, Rav Papa, my time along with Rav Zvid. Why did Rav Papa not want to learn like Rav Zvid's pshat? Because Rav Papa, the reason is because Rav Papa holds Ki Omar Rav, when Rav said his halacha of Maimed Shloshtan, when you have these three people standing together, the owner of the money, the holder of the money, and now this new recipient that he wants to give it to, when they're standing together, this halacha of Rav, lo yishna b'milveh v'lo yishna b'pekadon. There's no difference if the money is present, like in the case of a pekadon, where you're holding on to that $100 for the owner, or in a place of a loan, where the money's not even here. So that cannot be an explanation for what Rav said in our Mishnah, tziburin, only if the money is here. Because the halacha of Maimed Shloshtan applies whether the money is present, whether the money is not present. Rav Zvid, my time along with Rav Papa. Why did Rav Zvid not want to say, like Rav Papa said, that our Mishnah is talking about a Shchiv Mirah, and based on what Rav himself said, that it has to be dafke mana zeh, money that's right over here? And says the Gemara, because Rav Zvid says, Lo mitukme masnisim b'Shchiv Mirah. If you look closer into our Mishnah, you'll see that our Mishnah cannot be talking about a person that's on his deathbed. Mimai, how do I know this? From the beginning of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says in the beginning, a person says, give this get to my wife. So the diak over here is, it says tnu, give. Or shtar shikhr zel abdi, give this shtar for freedom for my eved. Umeis, and he passes away. Lo yitnu la'acha misa. So it cannot be given after he passes away. Okay, so now let's analyze now what we see from this Mishnah. The reason why you don't have to give it is because he passed away. After he passes away, there's no get and there's no shtar shechra. But you understand from our Mishnah, if this person is still alive, noisnin, you would have to give the get or the shtar shechra that he appointed the shliach to give. Now, further, what do we understand from our Mishnah? The Mishnah was specific that you appointed the shliach and you told him tnu, give. That's when you have to give the get. But if he did not use the term give, he didn't say tnu, he just said write a get or write a shtar shechra. Then you won't have to give it. But now the problem is, if so, it can't be talking about a shchiv mirah, because a shchiv mirah, the halacha by a shchiv mirah is a person that's on his deathbed and says, write a get for my wife. You have to listen to him and give the get, because he's in a state of mind where even if he doesn't clearly say give, just saying write, we know he meant to say write and give. It's just that he didn't get a chance to specify what he means. But we can rely that we know that he's saying, give the get to my wife. So basically the point the Gemara is saying is, because the Mishnah uses the term tnu, it's understood from this that it can't be talking about a shchiv mirah. And the Gemara brings the source of this halacha. The Tanah we learned in the Mishnah, says later here in the Masechta, Bari Shaina, in the beginning the halacha was, the Chachamim said, a person that goes out with a noose around his neck and he's taken out to be executed. V'amar, and he says, Kisvu get lishti, write a get for my wife. He doesn't want it to be stuck with a yavam or something like that. He says, write a get for my wife. Hare elu yichtavu v'yitnu. You write and you give the get. Because even though he didn't clearly say to give the get, but we know that that's what he meant. It's just that he didn't get a chance to finish off what he wanted to say. Chazru loima, then the Chachamim came around and they said even more. A person that's leaving and he goes out with a caravan to a far place and he says, Kisvu, write a get for my wife. We know that he means to say, write and give. Then Rab Shimon Shazuri added even more, even a person that is about to die, he's on his deathbed, which is the Shchiv Mirah, and he says, write the get for my wife, that's enough that we give the get to his wife, even if he didn't say tunu. So the Gemara is now assuming that our Mishnah is following Rab Shimon Shazuri's opinion, and our Mishnah it says tunu, only if you say tunu. So our Mishnah can't be talking about a Shchiv Mirah. Okay, so the Mefarshim here say that the Gemara is assuming that our Mishnah goes like Rab Shimon Shazuri because the halacha is like Rab Shimon Shazuri. But Rav Ashi asks, Maskav Lo Rav Ashi, Uman name alone the Masnisan Rav Shimon Shazuri. Who says our Mishnah is following the opinion of Shimon Shazuri? Dilma Rabbanani. Maybe our Mishnah follows the opinion of the Rabbanah that say that a Shchiv Mirah that says Kisvu, that's not good enough. He has to say clearly Kisvu utnu. So our Mishnah that says Tanu still could be talking about a case of a Shchiv Mirah, like Rav Papa said. Okay, now the Gemara comes back to this halacha of Maimed Shloshtan that Rav said. So kufa, this halacha itself we had before. A person says, look, I have a money of mine in your hands. Instead of giving it back to me, give it back to this individual here. If they're all three standing there together, kana. That individual was kaina this mana. So Rav said about what Rav said, mistavre milse de Rav. What Rav says, it makes sense to say so. Only if the money is actually present right here. Then it makes sense that Chachamim instituted that this money that's right here, even without a kinyan, it could be kind to this person. But if you're talking about a loan, the money is spent. It's not even here at all. So over here, not only do you not have a Maisa kinyan taking place, it's a Davash Le'Balaylam. The money is not even here at all. Over here, Chachamim would not institute that three people standing together would work, that you say that that money that you have, that you owe me, should go to this person, because the money's not even here at all. That's what Rav said. But then he added, V'ha elikim, but it's a lashon of a shvur, like an oath. I'll tell you for sure that Amar Rav, afilu b'milva. When Rav said his chiddush of this kinyan b'mayim shloshtan, he said so even regarding a loan when the money is spent and it's not here at all. Not only Rav, we also learned Amar Shmuel Mishmei de Levi. Shmuel said in the name of Levi that he said clearly, Milveli b'yotcha. Person says to his friend, you owe me $100. Now Taneu loy leploini. Instead of giving it back to me, give it back to this. Pay it to this individual here. B'mayim shloshtan. They're all three standing together. Kana Chachamim instituted that you're kaina. So the Gemara asks him this, but why is this so? So the Gemara is asking this question specifically regarding a milva. Regarding a pakadain, it's also a chiddush. Chachamim instituted that he's kind of without a kinyan, but the money is here. But by a milva, where it's a dover shalei bala oilam, so how are you kind of at all? Amar HaMeimer, so HaMeimer says by a loan, there's a different reason for this. Because naseh ka'oimaloi, when he tells this person that I want the other person, this new person here, to have the rights to collect this loan from you, it's as if he's telling him, b'shas matan mois, when he borrowed the money, shabad neloch lididach l'chol da'asamach masech, that I am subjugated, I owe this money to you, or anybody that will be coming in your place. It's as if he said this to them then. Right, so obviously this doesn't mean that Chachamim was saying that when a person borrows money, that every person we know that he's thinking that he's ready to pay it, whether to the lender or to anyone that takes his place. It's a takanas Chachamim. Chachamim instituted that it should be as if this happened. But since it's possible for you to be mishabed yourself then, so therefore Chachamim instituted that the kinyan is not really taking place now. Because the money is not present now. Right now it's a dover shalei bala oilam, the money was spent. But the kinyan is taking place by the fact that Chacham is saying from when he borrowed the money, then you're mishabed yourself to give it to whoever the lender decides you should give it to. That's the logic over here. So basically by a pakadain, the maimet shloshtan works as a kinyan now, because the money is present, and by a milva it works, the takanat Chacham goes back from when he borrowed the money. But on this, Ravashi asks HaMeimer, but if so, hikna lo. How about if this person is now coming and saying that I want you to give this money to a third individual, and he was only born after the loan took place. He wasn't alive at all when the loan originally took place. It wasn't in the world then when he got the money for this loan. Are you going to say that over there it's different? That over there, this kinyan of Maimet Shloshton will not take effect? And the Gemara explains why it should not. If that person is not alive, if you're telling me that really the kinyan takes place when he borrows the money, as if then he's mishabed himself to pay to this lender or to anyone else that comes in his place, but if that person is not alive at that time, it can't take place as a kinyan for that person. So even Rab Meir, that says that you could be makna something to someone, something that does not exist in the world, right? So Rashi brings examples. For you say to someone, I'm selling you the fruits that this tree will grow, or I sell you the fish that my net will capture, and it's not something that's here yet at all. So usually we say you can't sell davar shlei b'laylam. But Rab Meir says no, you could sell a davar shlei b'laylam. But hani mili lidavar sheyeshne b'laylam. You could only sell to an individual that is alive and is here in the world. Aval lidavar she'ene b'laylam like. But to say that there's a kinyan that takes effect for this person that was not alive yet then when you borrowed the money, There's no such a kinyan. So if the whole logic of how this kinyan of Maimet Shloshton takes place is not now, but it takes place maybe 10 years ago when you borrowed the money, and then there's sort of an agreement that Chachamim say that it's an automatic thing that they instituted, that the money goes back to the lender or anyone else that comes in his place. That could only be if that person is alive then. So we never heard that Rav made such a distinction that it depends if the person was alive at that point or not. So how could a Meimer say that this is the explanation for what Rav says, that the kinyan takes place even by a loan? Okay, so the Gemara is going to bring another few ways of understanding Rav, as we'll see in Mitzvah Shem.